Hello there, you beautiful beings. This is Rosanna here, channeling some rosy glow. And this is for all of you who find that you feel that you cannot possibly need someone or something to help you at this stage in your life, that it is impossible for you to move forward without doing it all yourself. And in fact, that is all that there is to do. And it really is one of those for people who feel they need to control everything in order to feel safe, because in the end, this idea that we are independent is actually a myth. And I have seen so many things online about independent women, independent men, not needing people, not needing, money, not needing anyone or anything. And ultimately what it comes down to is independence is the ultimate ego trap. And I'll tell you why. It is the separation from source. Okay, so whilst it is important for us to understand that we don't get our happiness, we don't get our fulfillment, we don't get our well-being, we don't get our sense of purpose from other people, we are not independent beings that exist without the need to coexist with other beings. So there is this important distinction to make between codependence, interdependence, and independence. And I would invite anybody who is striving towards independence to understand that perhaps that is a trap that is keeping them in their mind and is not allowing them to drop into their heart space, which is where all the power lies for us to be conscious co-creators of our reality, and therefore to start to shape our experience of life and to unblock the flow of the things that we would actually like in our lives. More money, more love, more health, more acceptance, whatever is important to you. It is important to remember that it comes from you first. And if you want to allow yourself to experience it, you're going to need to allow yourself to receive it. So what is this trap? Well, I have so many notes here that it's just like lots of things that I wanted to share with you. And it's based on what I see with my clients. So I have some clients who seem to either really struggle to sign up, or they feel as though they need to be somewhere where they are perfect in themselves before they're actually allowed to have something that they want. And again, when I talk about separation from source, what I want to say here is the creation myth of this planet is really based on the story, the Christian story of Adam and Eve. And of course, there are other religions and other stories, but ultimately it is the message that when you separate yourself from your heart, from your source consciousness, and you seek to do everything through knowledge, through the mind, then you end up blocking the flow, because love is source of all that is, and the mind is the trappings of the ego. So quickly, what is the ego? Well, the ego is the programmed part of you. It is the you that is been made up of your time in the womb and the first few years of your life. And this is really conditioned responses to try and protect you from experiences of harm once you have actually had them, or someone else has had them and is therefore passing the effects of those fears onto you. So when you're in the womb, remember that you are not thinking things through. You are not thinking, oh, this is anger, this is fear, this is sadness, this is grief, this is joy, this is happiness, this is love. You're just experiencing emotions through the chemical exchanges that occur between you and your mum. So through her blood, through the chemical changes in her blood and the composition of her blood, different hormones pass through to you and you have different experiences. Some will be thrilling, if you like, or fearing, like adrenaline-based responses, and others will feel good and will feel nurturing, and that will be the oxytocin-based response. So without going on too much of a tangent, if you are a bit of a thrill seeker, then the likelihood is that you probably experienced quite a lot of stress hormones when you were in the womb, and you have got used to those as defining an aspect of your personality, an aspect of who you are, your essence. But it's not actually your essence. This is simply your experience as you incarnated in a physical being and started to become, if you like, a fully fledged human. And the first few years of our lives, so our time in the womb, our birth, the early nurturing time, first 3 years, first 7 years, are really intrinsic to how we perceive the world, as whether it is a safe place or it is an unsafe place. And when we have perceived life as being unsafe, then we will go one of two ways. We will either become very, very needy and very anxious, and we will seek others to make us feel safe, or we will cut ourselves off from others and we will actually seek to be entirely self-sufficient as a way of preventing pain. But ultimately, that is self-harm in the sense that we block the flow of love and exchange between humans, between animals and humans, between the world and us, between source and us. And we end up being in a state where we are separate. And that separation is something that, unfortunately, we believe is going to keep us safe, but it actually isn't. So again, independence is very much relating to the need to understand things in order to feel safe. And of course, you know, the idea that we're self-sufficient in terms of the money that we bring in terms of the choices that we make in our lives, that we know we don't need people, but that it's nice to have them around, that we don't make other people responsible for our happiness. All of these things are very important. But when we come to believe that we're only worthy of love, we're only worthy of success, we're only worthy of companionship, we're only worthy of acceptance and money and anything else that's important to you, if we are able to do everything ourselves, then we end up in a very sad place where we are eternally blocking the flow. So the way I describe this is, if you look at nature, is anything in nature truly independent? You have, of course, every species existing in itself, and you have colonies and you have different beings doing different things, but ultimately they coexist around each other. And what you see thriving is that which is able to, what's the word? When you come into a place where you are able to work together and have a common goal. So it does lead to this interdependence idea. And it really is about you understanding that the survival of the species, if you like, or the survival of our planet isn't based on us trampling over each other. It is based on cooperation. And that cooperation is entirely important. So, for example, me. You know, I'm really good at working with my clients, okay? I'm really good at being able to intuit things that are going on, to uncover blind spots, to guide people towards places they haven't been before by helping them feel safe to enter into those places. What I'm not good at is Excel spreadsheets. I'm not good at accounts. I'm not good at all sorts of aspects that my organization would not work if I decided that I had to do everything myself in order to be successful. And again, if I bring this to relationships, you know, certainly I have worn the single mother badge for many, many years. And though I did allow relationships into my life, they were always at a distance because I was scared of becoming dependent on someone. I was scared that in the end they would control me. I was scared that somehow I'd become dependent on them financially, or I'd become dependent on them for my happiness. And so it was better for me to keep everybody at an arm's length than it was to let them in and risk being hurt. And here's the irony. You've been hurt in your life, so you don't want to be hurt again. And by virtue of that, you try and protect yourself from being hurt, right? But what happens with that is you protect yourself from feeling, you protect yourself from actually being able to experience love again, because the hurt is in the past. The memory of the hurt is what keeps it in the present. And of course, we always want to learn from our part in playing things and what's actually happened to contribute to the pain that occurred. But that pain has occurred in your life in order to trigger a soul lesson. And if you are willing to learn that soul lesson, then what will happen is you will move beyond it, and your vibration will change. And as a result of that, you won't attract it anymore. But if you are in a process of trying to protect yourself from pain, which is what the ego is doing, you're constantly looking out for the potential of that pain occurring again. And because you're looking out for it occurring again, you are attracting situations that are similar to it. So this is another form of self-harm. It's almost like, because the hurt occurred in the past, you didn't expect it to occur and it came out of nowhere. You want to control when you get hurt and when you don't get hurt. And this is something I talk a lot to my clients about. It's almost like, if I create the conditions that I know are going to create this pain again, then at least I know what to expect. I know what's coming. It is familiar to me. Now, this is a reminder of the uncomfortable comfort zone. And there are other videos of mine on that, which I'll put in the links below. But ultimately, when you let that go and you decide to heal from it, and you decide it was an experience that you don't want to actually recreate, but there were many valuable lessons you learned from it, and you know that you have learned something from it, and therefore it is safe to step out into the world again and to be open to something different, then you're trusting yourself. Then you're opening to believing that you're capable of attracting something different. And as a result of that, you do. You're not looking out for the same thing. And as a result of that, you're not attracting it. Okay. Now, I know there are lots and lots of people out there that search YouTube for, you know, how to be independent, how to attract the love that I want, how to get someone to love me, how to have more money, how to this, how to that. And it's almost like coming from a desperation place. If I do this and this, then I'll be a good girl or good boy and I'll get what I want. And this really, it comes to a place of feeling empty in the first place and needing something outside of you to fill you up. So I want to take this back to this whole understanding of this being an ego trap, because, okay, if you look at it this way and you say, we're all coexisting. I am an independent drop of divine essence in an ocean of love, in an ocean of God, an ocean of source. I have my own unique independent blueprint, but I still exist within this huge ocean. And on my own, I would just be a drop. But with all these other drops gathered together, we are an ocean of source, of love, of emotion, of whatever you want to connect with. So when we are in a place where we are seeking to clear a block, where we are seeking to open up, it is important to understand that love, well-being, money is all energy. Success is all energy. So when you say I have to do it all myself, you're basically saying that I'm not prepared to accept any help. And I see people really struggle when they see something they're attracted to and they want to give it a go. So it might be a course they want to go on, or it's a teacher they want to work with, or it's a relationship that is attractive to them, whether it's a friendship or whether it's something romantic, and they want to say yes to it. But somehow they don't feel like they should, because they should already have all the answers that whatever they're looking at is offering them. But somehow, because of everything they've already done so far, they shouldn't be looking for this. And this is about genuine need. Okay, this is about you being willing to accept that it is okay to need things. It is okay to need love. It is okay to need comfort. It is okay to need excitement. It is okay to need comfort. It is okay to need anything at all that you feel you want, that you seem to be lacking, right? But at the same time, remember that it's not going to come from outside of you. It's recognizing that the need is important. And as you own that need, you then end up in a situation where it can be met. So one of the key shifts that occurred in my own life when I moved from pushing everyone away and feeling like I had to do it all myself to actually having huge breakthroughs financially, in my well-being, and also in love, it came to me being willing to take some big risks and to say yes, where I would normally look for reasons to say no. And this did mean enlisting the help of a coach. It did mean stepping into a relationship with both my feet rather than looking for all the reasons to step away. It did involve me saying yes to things that excited me but also scared me. And it did involve me being willing to trust that I had within me the resources to make whatever I wanted to work, because all I really needed to do was to believe in myself. And this is the doorway into unblocking the flow, is the self-belief that you are allowed to be just as you are and still have wants and still have needs and still be allowed to get help. Okay, because a carpenter still needs a plumber, still needs an electrician, still needs a builder, still needs a project manager, still needs an architect to build a house, right? Now that plumber might have trained in all of those skills, but just think about it. How long is it going to take them to build that house if they do it on their own? How long is it going to take them to build that house if they do it with others? So do you see that the trap of independence is also the fact that we basically push people away and we say, I have to work on myself, I have to work on myself, I have to do this deep inner work on my own. And you may have a journey of deep inner work to do where instead of distracting yourself with other people, you actually do take the time to look inwards, because you know that's what's going to help you to cultivate a sense of safety. And also seeing yourself go through challenges and getting through them on your own really gives you that confidence in your own resilience, right? And so there is a place for that. But pushing people away for the sake of pushing people away is really the avoidance of intimacy. It's the avoidance of being hurt, risking being hurt. And this is where this independence trap really comes in. It's like the list of all the things that you have to do to prove that you don't need anyone or anything before you're allowed to have what you want, which is actually someone you can lean on a little bit and someone who can lean on you, someone you can show your vulnerability to, and someone whose vulnerability you can see without feeling threatened. And I mean this in the workplace. I mean this in life in general. I mean it in every area. Okay. So we have these ideas that somehow, if we feel overwhelmed with life, right, if we feel like we're not enough and we don't have enough, then the last thing we want is someone to be a burden on us because we don't feel we've got enough to give. And the last thing we want by virtue of that is also to be a burden on others. So we kind of push everything away, but in pushing everything away, we also block our flow. So we end up finding that we don't have enough of anything we particularly want or need. And so we are having to go to others and ask for their help and their assistance, which is perpetuating this idea that somehow we're not enough. And it pushes us more and more into a spiral of doom, rather than opening to the idea in the first place that no man, woman, child, non-binary being is an island. And as a result of that, we actually, are open to saying what we need, validating what we need through ourselves, recognizing that we are worthy of what we need, and then being open to it. In my own partnership, I've had to accept that I'm an incredibly strong, incredibly independent, incredibly powerful woman who's used to making decisions on my own and not really having to rely on anyone, not having to compromise, not having to question whether I'm right or not. To stepping into a place where I can let go of a whole load of that control. I don't need to control everything in order to feel safe. I am happy to compromise. I am happy to find a middle way. I am happy to accept another being's point of view. And I don't have to fight for mine to be the only one that is valid and therefore the only one that can exist. Because everything can coexist at the same time. The question is, what do you want to put your energy on? Okay, what do you want to focus on? And personally, I wanted to focus on being the greatest version of myself, being able to co-create my dreams, being able to work with others to achieve things, and in so doing, clearing my own blocks, moving through them myself, and then also supporting them to move through theirs. So I have learned through being with another very strong and capable being what it means to accept love. Right? What it means to accept unconditional love, what it means to accept myself in my imperfections, to accept another in their imperfections, and to focus on what we want to create together rather than what we fear losing. And as a result of that, trying to create some kind of boundary around it to keep it safe, but in so doing, locking it away. And that's the controlling behavior. That's the need to be able to control everything in order to feel safe. And that means controlling other people as well. And this is the thing about being needy and dependent, is that you will never feel safe whilst your happiness is basically someone else's responsibility. So yeah, you do need to know what you do like and what you don't like. You do need to know what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. You do need to know what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. But there are hard lines and then there are flexible lines, and it's working that out. If your whole life you have molded yourself to others to keep them happy, which so many of us have done, then it's very difficult for you to know what you truly do want and need. And as a result of that, some time with yourself is very, very powerful. When do you know that you actually don't need someone else's help, or you don't need to engage in something that is sparkling, but ultimately is not what you need to be doing? And generally, this is when you're looking for distractions. Okay, this is when you know you have work to do, but ultimately you just want someone else to validate what you already know, or you have one more book to read, or one more essay to write, or one more course to go on before you feel qualified. And I personally remember getting all my certificates out once, like all my diplomas, from everything from my university degree through to all of the yoga diplomas, all the Reiki, all of the self-development, all of the coaching work I've done, everything. I put it all out on the floor, covered this huge rug, and I took a photo of it, and it was like a reminder to myself, do you feel qualified? Am I qualified enough now to actually step forward and say, yeah, I've learned a thing or two, both from theory and also from the practice of my life. So when we come back to this idea of independence being the ultimate ego trap, what we're basically saying is we don't feel safe to hand things over. Okay, we don't feel safe to, one, acknowledge we have a need, and also to hand it over and allow it to be met. So this is the difference between the solar plexus and the heart. Okay, so what the heart will do is it will connect you to your higher self. It will connect you to the source of all that is. It will connect you to your higher will. And one of the mantras that I use in my coaching, or one of the I am statements, is I am surrendering my ego will to my divine will. And this is really scary for people, because if you're fighting for independence, if you're challenged, if you're struggling to be independent, right, then the last thing you're going to want to do is surrender your independence to some supposed outside authority or outside power, especially if you've got dogma around religion, spirituality, cultural stuff that's basically saying that the source of all that is, or God, is dualistic in nature, is like humans, so gets angry, gets wrathful, punishes, all that stuff. Why on earth would you hand over your independence, your ego will, your personal I am will to your divine will? Well, you're not going to, are you? Because why would you? You know, if I have a desire to have fun, because I like fun, and my idea of having fun is like basically being a party girl, and I'm then saying, right, I'm going to surrender my ego will to my divine will, and I've got an idea that source does not like partying, that source thinks partying is a waste of time and actually is decadent and debaucherous and is the devil's work. Why on earth would I hand over? I'm not going to, right? But if I trust my higher self knows how to help me enjoy higher and higher states of excitement, joy, fulfillment than I'm used to actually having. And I may have got used to getting these feelings from substances or through engaging in certain activities. And I actually have the ability to transmute that and to move into a space where I can have the same joyful experience without needing to engage in habits or substances that maybe are harmful for me in terms of my physical experience. Then this is where it gets interesting, isn't it? Because you have to embrace where you're at to be able to get to where you want to get to. And you have to embrace where you're at without any judgment, and to stop seeing things as good or bad, but actually just to welcome whatever it is you feel you have a need for, because the need will get you there. But you have to remember that the need is based on love and not harm, okay? If you feel like you need to harm yourself in order to fulfill something, so, you know, and by harming yourself, I mean consciously cause yourself pain. There are things we do that we don't see as harmful. They might be harmful in the long run, but in the short term, they're fun. So, for example, you know, recreational drug use, or alcohol, or cake, you know, something that gives you, you know, an immediate sense of something nice and pleasant, but maybe in the long term, or if you indulged frequently, wouldn't be so good for you. That's very different to you, say, burning yourself or cutting yourself or hitting yourself or intentionally creating some kind of physical pain. That stuff, you know, is definitely around the need to control, feeling safe. And that level of independence is a huge block to the flow of love. And I have another video which is about toxicity. It's about why we feel we're not worthy of love, which I'd highly recommend you look at if that is an issue for you. But we're talking here about, you know, those of us who have hedonistic tendencies, or maybe find that we've worked with, well, it could be anything really. It could anything that's mind expanding, that has kind of stepped you out of your usual state of being to help you see something bigger than where you currently are. What's easy to do is to attach to that thing, thinking that's what gets you there. But actually, whatever that is, whether it's, you know, some kind of sacred medicine, whether it's marijuana, whether it's LSD, whether it's whatever, MDMA, I don't really care what it is. To think that you need that to get to that space is where the myth is, okay? Because you don't. It was just a doorway. Just like every relationship that you've had that has connected you to love, that you have then lost or has been taken away or didn't work out, was just a doorway. Just like every moment you've experienced the high of success. So whether it's a win, you know, some kind of promotion, or a taste of you being at the top of your game and you haven't been able to sustain it, again, it's just a doorway. But don't feel that you have failed because somehow you have had an experience of something that's been taken away. The reason these things come into our lives is to expand our perception of what is possible, to remind us that actually we are capable of the more. And as a result of that, what happens is we end up looking inwards rather than outwards and allowing ourselves to actually step forward and say, I am worthy of this. I am deserving of this. I am allowed to have this. And when you do give yourself permission to have things that you want, without getting attached to how they come your way, they start to appear. And this is the point, is you don't have to worry about the how. You just have to show up. And you just have to be clear about what it is you feel you want and you need at this stage. If you ask, it will be given. That is guaranteed. But if you push it away because you're scared of having it, it's worth remembering something that a very beautiful being once shared with me. And I still have the card that I keep in my wallet, which basically had written on it, when you are no longer afraid of failure, you will succeed. And when you are no longer afraid of happiness, you will feel joy. Ironically, this is the way life is. When you are not afraid of pain, you will feel happiness. When you are not afraid of failure, you will succeed. Ironically, this is the way life is. And it's true. You know, like you have to be prepared to get burned and know that you will come back again and again and again, like the phoenix rising out of the ashes. So if you know that you would like to be able to open to whatever you want, then be clear on all the reasons that you feel you're not worthy of having it right now. Like write them down, but then turn them round. And everything that you feel is blocking you from having what you want. You know, I'm needy, you know, I'm jealous, I'm clingy, I'm suspicious, I'm fearful of failure, whatever your thing is, then turn it around and actually look at this and say, all right, okay, so even though I feel I'm needy, I am still worthy of love. Even though I feel I'm jealous, I am worthy of love. And it is about being able to get over the idea that because of these things, you're not worthy of it. Just because you don't have any money doesn't mean that you're not worthy of being loved. Just because you're not very well doesn't mean you're not worthy of being loved. Just because you've had failed relationships in the past does not mean you're not worthy of being loved. Just because you have children and a relationship that didn't work out doesn't mean you're not worthy of being loved. So if you can accept that you're worthy of being loved no matter what, this is going to help you to move forward. And this is what leads you out of that independence myth trap, okay? Because to be codependent, we're never going to be happy. To be independent, we're never really going to be happy. We're going to be independent. And there is some joy that comes from that, you know, we can do everything ourselves, but that doesn't bring us love. It doesn't necessarily equate to anything. We can be independent on our own our whole lives, and that might be what you want. But if you want to succeed in life, if you want to have money in life, if you want to have love in your life, that's going to involve interdependence. It's going to involve exchanging. It's going to involve communication. It's going to involve sharing your hopes and your dreams and your fears and your insecurities. It's going to involve being transparent. It's going to involve being authentic. It's going to mean you step up and you look for the best, but you claim your truth. And if you claim your truth, then you will step forward. So just checking that I've covered everything here that I wanted to. Remember that the work that I do is very much based on Bruce Lipton's work,